Welcome everyone to this special Be Inspired session. Fantastic to have people here with us, and really good to have Holly and Nick with us. These sessions are now run on a monthly basis through volunteering, and started during the pandemic as a great way for our alumni to connect and share their journeys and their stories and inspirational things they've got up to after graduating from Royal Holloway. And it's kind of something that we've ended up carrying on with. Um, so this is, I've actually lost count now where we're up to, but we started again this October, and we've gone literally monthly through this year. So we're going to record, and we are recording at the moment, and this will be available to listen to afterwards as well. So let me pass on to Nick Hall. Nick is the Director of Student Experience for our School of Performing and Digital Arts, and it's fantastic to have Nick with us. And Holly actually was a graduate of drama and theatre, so there's the little connection there. But Nick, over to you to introduce Holly.
Okay, thank you very much, Phil. Well, it's a real pleasure to introduce Holly as one of our drama graduates. She graduated in 2010 with a degree in drama from Royal Holloway. As a student, she was actively involved with the Student Union's Insanity radio station, and she was the youngest volunteer with victim support in Surrey. She went on to win a competition to be the official TV presenter for the Be Inspired Youth Volunteering Awards. After graduating, Holly joined a youth TV news scheme with the Media Trust and became a regular on BBC Radio London. As a journalist, she presented TV and radio news. She worked closely with the Samaritans to produce a radio documentary on suicide, which was broadcast by the BBC. And during this time, Holly also completed an MA in radio at Goldsmiths and worked on a number of radio stations as a reporter and newsreader. Holly has been designing and running her own media training for children and adults since 2013, teaching things like presenting skills, media law, radio drama, PR, journalism, and so forth. And she now runs the Introduction to Broadcast Journalism evening course at City University of London and mentors aspiring media professionals via Arts Emergency and Royal Holloway's Volunteering Alumni Coaching Scheme. Holly more recently gained a scholarship to do a PhD at City University of London on kids, crime and social media. And that's when she started lecturing in media law, criminology, journalism, sociology and victimology. She now works as a media trainer, lecturer, criminologist and consultant, specialising in legal and ethical challenges on social media via onlinemedialaw.co.uk. Finally, in 2020, Holly won an award for her work with online media law from the Violent Crime Prevention Board. And I mean, that seems like about 3 careers in one bio to me. I'm extremely impressed, and it just shows where you can go with a degree in drama from Royal Holloway and enthusiastic participation in student volunteering. So it's a pleasure to introduce you, Holly. I think over to Holly now.
That's great. Thank you so much. I do have some slides. I don't know if you'd like me to see if I can pop those up. So I'm going to open the share tray and see if I can get my Royal Holloway talk slides up here for you. See if that's all working. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that the technology gods are on my side today. Hopefully you can all see that. Can somebody give me
a that's
thumbs up or a yep? That's brilliant. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for that huge long introduction, which does sound like lots of different things. And I think I am someone who's never really had a particular career path. It's probably fairly obvious that I tend to have just gone where things seem interesting. But I'm gonna just say before we get started, if you would like to stay in touch with me or reach out to me, please do. I love hearing from people. You can find me on LinkedIn fairly easily because my name is Holly Powell-Jones. It's quite an unusual name, so you can find me on LinkedIn and add me there. Also, my Twitter handle is in the top right-hand corner. It's at Holly_PJ, so feel free to give me a follow if you're on Twitter, and you can also find links to my website there as well. So if you don't want to ask me a question here, or you think of a question later on, do feel free to get in touch because I'd love to hear from you all. So on to what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to start with asking you to imagine that it's February in 2011 and I am inside of the O2. It's night time and there's a build up for an awards ceremony, and I am about to present a piece to camera, as it's called, and I have to pinch myself, okay, because I'm 21 years old. I've never done any TV presenting before, and yet somehow I've been designated the official reporter covering the night's events. I've got interviews lined up with celebrities, with musicians, various award winners, and I got selected to do that job out of more than 600 applicants at the time. And this night was kind of what set me off in my career in media. So for many years, I worked as a reporter and a newsreader for TV and radio. But this is kind of the moment where it all started to feel real, like it was possible, like I could do this. And the reason why I got this incredible opportunity is because of volunteering. And I will explain more about how and why at the end of today. But I'm extremely passionate about volunteering. And when I was at Royal Holloway, I volunteered in all sorts of ways, doing gardening and community cleanup projects, helping out in the office. I did some comms and marketing roles. I worked with younger people, worked with older people. I went abroad to Morocco to teach English as a volunteer. But my most regular gig was as a telephone support worker with victim support. So that was talking to victims of crime and providing them with support. And to this day, I still believe that volunteering is one of the best things you can do. And for me, nowadays, it's mostly through coaching and mentoring and the work that I do helping young people, which is why it's such a pleasure to be here today and talking to everyone. So thank you so much for coming. Rather than focus on myself too much, I thought what would be useful is if I run through some key lessons that I've learned, plus provide you with some practical activities that I often like to do with young people that I'm mentoring and my journalism students as well, to help kind of set you up for the next phase of your life after graduation. So please do make notes as we go. Again, jot down any questions you've got, because I want to leave loads of time for questions at the end. But yes, it's going to hopefully be fairly interactive and fairly practical for you. So it won't just be me talking. Right, so this is my graduation day, as you can see, standing outside the entrance to Royal Holloway. And I think it's important to say on the outside, I look super happy, but I was actually quite miserable at the time that I graduated. I felt like I'd worked really hard. I'd studied really hard, you know, I'd got a first. I had a paid job as well. So I was doing waitressing, kind of silver service at weddings, things like that. I had all my volunteering experience, nice group of friends, etc. But I didn't have a plan. And what happened after graduation is I ended up back in my old room at my parents' house, just driving back and forth into university for doing waitressing shifts and feeling pretty anxious and pretty depressed, to be honest. Just as a side note, I want you to know that this is sometimes quite a normal thing that happens during sort of major transition periods in your life. However, it is really important that if you feel like you need some professional help or to talk to someone, that you do reach out and get counselling or speak to a proper qualified therapist, of which I'm sure there'll be some sources at Royal Holloway for that. But what eventually kind of pulled me out of feeling really rubbish was an invitation to join a group of young people as part of a youth board to advise on how to get more university students into volunteering. And the meetings were held down in Bristol, and it was a really long drive. Okay, so to get in the car, the meetings were for a few weeks, stay overnight in a hostel, but that long drive down to Bristol felt like an escape, a really nice escape. I'm very sociable, I'm very extroverted, so I really loved meeting everyone else on the board, bouncing around ideas, sort of realizing as well, actually, that we were all able to contribute something positive, and that sort of never failed to cheer me up, really. And I think the point here is that volunteering made me feel useful. Essentially, it took my mind away from just kind of ruminating about myself and thinking about doing something positive for other people. So there is a word of warning, though, bit of caution for this tale. I meet lots of young volunteers today who are doing too much. Okay, they are too much, taking on too much, and possibly nearing burnout looking after other people and taking care of others. So the first and most important lesson today that I want to talk about is to prioritize your well-being. Okay, so we've reached the advice part now. So pens at the ready for practical activities. Most people who do volunteering and various other things while they're at uni are people who care very deeply about other people. They're extremely proactive. They tend to say yes to everything. And often when I get to sort of mentoring and coaching, sometimes the last thing I want to do is set people more goals, because they might already have quite a lot on their plate and potentially even at the expense of their health. So I think it's really important to start by saying, sometimes a bit of rest and reflection when you get to the end of your studies can be better than throwing yourself into more activities. So I don't know if anyone's seen the Disney film Encanto recently, but the older sister obviously trying to be the strong one, carry everyone else and not to crack, and the other sister wants to just be perfect all the time. Please learn a lesson from Encanto. If you try too hard to make other people happy, you will kind of burn out your magic candle. So try to be patient with yourself and be as kind to yourself as you inevitably are with other people who you look after and take care of. So the first activity is really just to make a list. So what I want you to do is just have a think about when you feel exhausted or empty, kind of what activities fill you up and make you feel good again. So this is quite a common thing that coaches will do with people that they're coaching. So it's a good one to do with you now. It might be going for long walks in nature. It might be driving in your car with your favorite music blaring. It could be cooking, could be going out drinking with your friends. It could be running, whatever it is that makes you feel good and is something that you do just for you. List as many as you can and just check in with when you last had time to do these things, because if you don't have time to do these in your life, then you've got too much on your plate. Okay. And I would say, in terms of a goal, it's time for you to put something else down or to pull back from something else to make sure that you can prioritize some of these activities that fill you up when you're feeling down and look after yourself. And that's something that we're all still learning to do, no matter how old we are, but it's a really, really important one to start with. Don't feel like you have to pick more stuff up. You might want to put some stuff down to make room for things that make you happy. Okay, we're on to lesson 2. So this is kind of an interactive one. So I'd like you to look at this CV and just take a minute to have a think, make some guesses. What job is this person applying for, do you think? So it's a CV, says education to 1 degree from Royal Holloway in English. They've listed their A levels, their GCSEs, what grades they got for them. Then they've got paid work, Royal Holloway alumni fundraising, telephone operator. They put waiter at Royal Holloway, perform drama workshops, Ambassadors Theatre Group customer service, Ragdale Spa waiter. And then right at the end, they put volunteering and hobbies, care assistant, football coach, podcast and student radio. What job is this person applying for with their CV? And the answer is, of course, no one knows. Nobody knows what job this person is applying for. Why? Because it's not tailored to a job. It's a very generic job. So the second thing that I really want to share with you is that I meet some really, really incredible young people who have done some extraordinary things, and yet they have truly terrible CVs. And one of the reasons is people are not sure how to tailor their CV to the job that they want to get. So I'm going to show you a few more examples now, and these are old CVs of mine, and I want you to, this time, see if it's a bit easier to guess what job this CV is going for. Let's have a look at this example. Holly Powell-Jones, broadcaster, voiceover, media professional. So it says voice style, female 30s, British Standard English, engaging, warm, reassuring. And then it says commercial voice reel, listen here, with a link. Relevant experience, voiceover, date leap short film, presenter, Impress video training series. That should hopefully be a little bit easier to see. That is a CV for going for voiceover work. Okay, if you want to be a voice artist, this is the sort of thing that you'd want to send off to people. Okay, this is another example. it says, Holly is a highly experienced and enthusiastic educator, comfortable tailoring content to suit a variety of diverse audiences within a range of contexts, from academic conference presentations and student lectures to professional training sessions and workshops in schools. It lists teaching qualification, and then underneath there's a list of different university lecturing experience. So again, hopefully quite obvious, this is going for a teaching job, because you can see the first experience that's listed is all teaching, and it says at the top in the bio, you know, an educator. Okay, we've got the third and last example. I'm a Broadcast Journalism Training Council accredited journalist with a proven track record in creating high quality broadcast content for BBC and commercial radio, television, print and online platforms. And then underneath it's got experience, Eagle Radio, freelance broadcast journalist, and a bit about that. Then it's got another radio station underneath with a bit about what happened there. Hopefully that's obvious. That's a broadcast journalism job. So hopefully you get what I mean here. This is one of the most common errors that I see amongst young people, is they sometimes can't even remember all the fantastic relevant experience that they've done, because they actually have done so much that they really struggle to pull out the most relevant threads. So if this is you, this next activity should really, really help you. So what I want you to do is start a new document, a blank document, and list all of your experience, literally anything, you know, that you've done, paid or unpaid, that what you did, but also what you learned, so what skills you developed. And what you should do is save this kind of everything document, if you like, and then you can draw from it whenever you need to. So this could be when you're putting together a CV for a job, when you're putting together an application or a personal statement, or even if you're preparing for an interview. Actually, it can be really, really good. Now, it's really, really important to tailor your CV to fit the role that you want. So again, can't stress this enough. Don't take that everything document and then make that your CV, because that's going to be way too long and it's going to have loads of stuff on there that isn't relevant. So make sure you just use that everything document as a base to just copy and paste the relevant sections and skills, and always order your CV with the most relevant experience first. My other top tip for this activity is cross-reference what you think your skills and your strengths are with maybe like 3 people who know you really, really well. It could be someone you've worked with, could be a family member or a partner. But ask them, what do they think your biggest strengths are, your biggest skills are? Because sometimes, again, I meet young people who don't even recognise their own strengths and their own skills, because to them it might come quite naturally. You know, somebody who's really, really great working with children, or somebody who's excellent at public speaking, for example, if they're naturally that way inclined and good at it, they might not even recognise that that is a skill or a strength that they should kind of really put forward. So cross-reference your list of skills and strengths with other people who know you, and make sure you know your strengths as a starting point to then go out in the world and find your roles. Okay, on to lesson number 3. So this is about, I want you to imagine that you've gone for a highly prestigious job, okay? One that on paper is like your dream role, okay? Everybody has mentioned it to you. It's with a really influential organization. It's doing research that's bang on your area of interest and your expertise. It's well paid. It's working with leading experts in the field. You know, and you get to actually be working directly with somebody who's like a legend that you really look up to. So again, if you hadn't worked it out, this is a real story about me. Anyway, this is about learning early on how to spot when something might be wrong for you, even though it looks right on paper. And it's really, really important. I know we all have to compromise with jobs kind of early on in our careers. I worked 3 days a week at Harrods selling perfume when I was doing my master's, and I absolutely hated it, but I needed the money. But anyway, so you've gone for this dream job on paper, and this is a job that I ended up being offered and turning down. Okay, why would I turn it down? Well, I'll talk you through some red flags that came up for me. So the first red flag with this job was I was given an application task. So that's when, as part of the application process, they make you do a task, and sometimes it's timed. In this case, it was. So they gave me 30 minutes to research and write a policy briefing document. Now, for context, it is not possible to research and write a policy briefing document in 30 minutes, okay? For context. And it was definitely not possible to do it well, to do a good job at all. Like researching research jobs and policy writing documents, you know, they take a long time. Anyway, so that was the first red flag. I thought, well, they've set me a task that is basically impossible. And it was probably one of the most stressful 30 minutes, at least of that week. Really, really difficult to get my head around trying to do that in the time. The second red flag is just as I was coming up for my final interview, I got an off the record briefing from a girl who already worked at the company saying, I just need to let you know what it's like working here, because we don't want you to join and then sort of quit a few months down the line. So just so you're aware, we all work until 6 p.m. every night, including Fridays. We all have to go and work on site, on location. This was during the COVID pandemic, by the way, when it was supposed to be essential travel only and not mixing. And she said to me, and just so you know, you're not going to have much of a social life. You won't want to do anything outside of work apart from sit and watch Jeremy Kyle, because you'll have such brain drain. And I thought, my gosh, that's another red flag, isn't it? Somebody's actually called me to warn me about the work culture. And then the final red flag was actually the final interview. The founder of the organization was chatting to the leading legend that I was going to be working with, who I vaguely know actually because I'd been at an event with her, and she had come out for drinks with us after a conference, as often happens. And it got to 9 o'clock at night and everyone was heading home, and she said, "Oh, I'm going back to work." And she went back to work at 9 p.m. And in that final interview, she was there, and the founder described this person as having a very relaxed attitude to work. At which point everybody laughed, and she said, "Oh, no, nobody would normally describe me as that." Also, final note on this, they also tried to pressure me into accepting the job then and there on the call by telling me they had another applicant lined up. And when I said to them, well, I need a bit of time to think about it, they wouldn't even give me half a day to think about it. So I ended up saying no. I said no, I turned it down. And actually, the story's got a happy ending, because in the end, they just hired me as a freelancer. So I still got paid, actually a slightly better day rate, to do the work anyway, but I did it remotely from home in a way that I was in control of. Okay, so the lesson. Why did I turn that job down? Why did I turn that job down? Well, the answer is because it didn't align with my values. Okay, what's important to me and what makes me happy. So the third lesson that I really want you to think about is, do you know what your values are? Do you know what's important to you and what makes you happy? So in that, for me, my number one value is autonomy. That's kind of having some control over doing things your own way and how you want to do them independently. So that was violating a lot of my number one kind of values, as well as a lot of other ones, including work-life balance. So you can find a list of work values online. If you look, you might have examples at your university careers website. I know the recruiter Indeed has got them as well. But the point is, there's no point pursuing a job or career that is going to make you miserable. You have to think critically about what matters to you and what doesn't. And be honest, by the way, when you do this. Do you prefer autonomy and independence, or do you prefer collaboration and teamwork? Would you rather have adventure, or would you rather have peace? Is it achieving results that gives you a real buzz, or is it more important for you to have close-knit relationships at work? You know, if stability is the most important thing to you, maybe don't become a self-employed freelance journalist, okay? But if you love novelty, doing something different every day, then that might be perfect. So again, the other tip for this that I would say, so you find a work values checklist, select what applies to you, try and narrow them down to your top 12, then your top 5, and rank them in order of most to least important. The other thing you can do with this, which I think is quite fun, is make a hate list. So actually pick the 5 top values that matter least to you, or that turn you off of a job, or something that would wind you up. So this is a really good checklist to make sure that you eliminate early on those opportunities that are not right for you. So yes, if you find something doesn't match up with your values, for goodness sake, ditch it. Don't waste your time. Okay, lesson number 4. Can anyone guess what I'm doing in this photo? I am being interviewed. Ah, yes, the dreaded interview. This is a story about the worst interview I ever did. It was right out of university. It was at a theatre, and it was to help them with their youth drama projects. And here's what happened. Firstly, I was late because I got lost, and I ended up turning up really sweaty and panicking because I was late. Secondly, I was wearing a full suit, an actual suit with a jacket, high-heeled shoes, stilettos, pinned up hair, very, very formal. And my interviewers from the company were in jeans, t-shirt, and trainers. And finally, they asked me the first question, and I couldn't answer it. And the first question was, tell us which of our projects you'd most like to be involved in running and why. Can you work out what I did wrong for this interview? Hopefully you can. It's pretty obvious what I didn't do. I didn't do any research. So again, I've met so many people who really think they want to do a particular job, and actually the reality might not match up to what you think that job is. You make assumptions, particularly. So I'll give you a real example. So my cousin really wanted to be an actress, and she really enjoys performing. She loves her amateur dramatics group, and she said, oh, maybe I should try and be an actress. But her main value is work-life balance. Her family is really, really important to her, and she wanted to have evenings and weekends free. That's like the most important thing to her. So can anyone see the problem there if you want to be a stage performer? There is a bit of a clash there if you don't want to work evenings and weekends. Again, my perception of journalism when I was a Royal Holloway student was that it was good for people who were ruthless, that it was very cutthroat. It was all about data. It was all about being emotionless, manipulative, not having any empathy. And the reality is, journalism is mostly actually about having empathy. It's about being sensitive. It's having compassion, empathy, emotions. All those things actually, I think, are a strength in the journalism industry. And that's something that I really try to drill into my students now. Don't think you're too sensitive to be a journalist. We need more sensitive people to be journalists because they make great journalists. So again, what I had in my mind, my perceptions of the job didn't actually align with what it really was. So this is another activity that you can do, which I did after graduating and really helped me, which is get a circle, slice it into 6, and write down your 6 kind of fantasy dream jobs. So you can see mine here. I've got playwright, TV presenter for travel shows, running kids workshops at the Globe, reviewing 5-star luxury restaurants, Radio 4 news presenter, teen fiction author, or writing young adult novels. Okay, so be as imaginative as you like. Pick your unicorn, fantasy level, whatever. Write down 6, and then do a bit of research and chop that down into 3. So eliminate the 3 that you think are perhaps don't really align with your skills or don't really align with your values, with the last 2 things we just talked about. So narrow it down to 3, and then when you've got 3, see if you can write a detailed profile of each of those 3 jobs, including what the job entails and also who already does it. Is there somebody you could be put in touch with? Is there somebody you could add on social media or follow on social media? There are so many online blogs with advice about careers now, podcast series. It's fairly easy, like I say, to follow people who do that job online. So do a bit of research and make sure, really importantly, that you cross-reference the strengths and the values that are important to you with the research about the reality of those jobs to see if they align. Great. Okay, time for another activity. So Lesson number 5. This is the last one, by the way. So last activity. I'm going to read you 2 personal statements from 2 applicants who were both trying to get on a master's course to do further studies at university. I'm just going to read them aloud, and I'd like you to tell me which one you think is best. Okay, so here's the first one. I want to study journalism because my main goal in life is to become a political editor of a major British newspaper. I believe this course will provide me with all the essential skills to build my dream career, as I will learn from experts who have professional experience in the news industry. In particular, I look forward to the modules on investigative journalism and radio presenting, as these are other interests of mine and I enjoy taking on new challenges. Okay, here's the second one. Despite living in Bethnal Green all my life, I only recently learned about the disaster that happened at the tube station. I was shocked, not just because of the horrific loss of life, but because there were attempts to cover it up and stop the media from reporting it. It made me wonder how much of history is missing because of trying to keep people silent. I want to study history to uncover more hidden stories that we perhaps don't yet know about. Which of those 2 statements do you think is stronger? Can you say why? Do you know why one of them is stronger? Is it obvious? I think, in my view, the second one is so much better than the first one because it shows something about this person's attitude. Okay, yes, they've told me about themselves, but they haven't told me about themselves through talking about themselves. They've actually told me something about themselves by talking about the world around them. Okay, I know that they are based in Bethnal Green. I know that they take an interest in local history. I know that they have already kind of had a revelatory moment, a magic moment where they realized history is really, really important or right for them. I know something about their values as well, that they've said actually the reason they want to do history is to kind of to get those untold stories out there. I almost get shivers actually when I read personal statements like this, and I sort of absolutely think, yes, that person deserves to have that opportunity. So the last lesson that I really want you to kind of remember is that skills and experience are things you can pick up along the way, but your approach is really what matters to people, and it's what shines through, I think, with that second example, that makes it so much better than the first example. So it doesn't really matter what job you end up doing, and it also doesn't really matter if you don't know yet. I didn't know when I left, and to be honest, the job that I do now, I'm a social media law and ethics expert. I mean, that didn't exist when I left Royal Holloway. In fact, I'm pretty sure it still doesn't exist. I'm pretty sure I just invented it as a job, and now I do it. But my husband as well, who went to Royal Holloway, helps companies to build brand-owned online communities. Again, these were not on our radar when we graduated back in 2010. So there might be a job out there that's perfect for you that hasn't actually been invented yet. You might have no idea, and that's okay. I don't think you need to have a path mapped out years and years ahead of you. You only need to concern yourself with kind of like the next little stepping stone, where you're going to go next, and be open to trying new things. I think changing careers every couple of years now is becoming much more the norm. It's much more normal for people to move between industries. And that's why those transferable skills, all of which I'm sure you have, are really, really important. But as I say here, even skills you can learn as you go, but the approach, the attitude is kind of what matters. And I do think, particularly being a volunteer, is a real strength, because what I know about volunteers is they tend to be very outward focused rather than inward focused or obsessed with themselves or their own ego. They're interested in the world around them, a bit like that second personal statement. They tend to be proactive, conscientious, curious, willing to try new things, full of initiative. And those things are going to set you apart from other graduates by a country mile, I promise you. So you're already set up kind of with the attitude that you need to do well. And to bring it back to my own story with volunteering, the reason why I won out of more than 600 candidates who applied to be the Be Inspired TV presenter was because I was the only applicant who wrote about how passionate they were about volunteering. True story, because I was told it when I went to do the job by the woman who'd looked through all the applicants. And she said, out of 600 plus people, she said, you were the only person who said you thought it was really important to recognise young volunteers for the incredible contributions they've made and about how much you loved volunteering and thought it was important. So there you go. I'm going to stop there so that we've got plenty of time for questions. But thanks very much for listening so far. And like I said, if you want to get in touch with me, you can follow me on Twitter, add me on LinkedIn. I'll be very happy to hear from you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Holly. Can we adopt you as our personal careers advisor for volunteering at Royal Holloway? I noticed that wasn't one of your dream jobs, but you are, Nick agrees, you are incredibly good at that. I feel like our careers assistants, our advisors who I invited, are going to listen back and think, get back to me, say, who's this Holly? We need her. No, it was fantastic. So thank you, Holly. So much there to take from, and thanks for sharing also some of your story there. Sharing at the end about it is sometimes so much the obvious, isn't it, that people forget to share. I've seen that so many times. We've interviewed people that they forget to share the obvious, and actually that is so needed as well. Yeah. So we've got a few students with us. Actually, more have joined while she's been speaking, so that's always a good thing, isn't it?
That's great.
You haven't dropped them. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is stop the recording at this point. So I'll thank you, Holly, for joining us. And if people want to get in contact with you, how do they do that again?
So you can follow me on Twitter at Holly_PJ, or you can find me on LinkedIn if you just search Holly Powell-Jones.